Impeach? Stanton, you want to impeach the president for violating a law you've created expressly so that he would violate it?
Yes.
I'll need to discuss this with my counterparts in the Senate.
I already have. I sent them a copy of the bill this morning.
Why am I not surprised?
Do I have your support, Mr. Bingham?
If the Senate will back us, yes.
Mr. Bingham, may I have a moment alone with Mr. Stanton?
Certainly. Gentlemen.
It's never been done before.
I'm aware.
In the history of this country, no president has ever been impeached.
I said I'm aware.
Maybe there's a reason for that. Aren't you concerned at all about the precedent you're setting here?
Article 2, Section 4.
Oh, for God's sake.
The president shall be removed from office on impeachment.
I don't
on
require
impeachment
a recitation.
For and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. I didn't set this precedent. The framers did.
So firing you is a high crime and misdemeanor?
It is if Congress says it is.
Aren't you worried at all about the fallout of all this?
Do you remember that bridge the Belmont Company built over the Ohio River?
You're going to tell a story.
It was a big project. Even bigger pile of money on the table.
Oh, for God's sake.
Everyone in town loved it. Well, everyone except me. I thought it was an eyesore. And it didn't take long for the local boatmen to discover the chimney tops of the larger ships were unable to pass under the bridge. People were angry, needless to say. The bridge company was supposed to build at a certain height, but they refused to correct their mistake or take responsibility. I owned a boat myself, so I took up a suit against them. But in order to win, I had to show just cause for damages. So I marched down to the dock and boarded my steamer, and I ordered the captain to proceed down the river toward the bridge, full steam ahead, until iron collided with concrete and the bridge came tumbling down. I lost my boat, but I won the case. And the Belmont Bridge Company, they're not around anymore. If you don't think I'll crash the boat into the bridge and bring the whole goddamn thing down with me, then you don't know with whom you're dealing.
I won't stand in your way.
Thank you.
You've left out a very important part of that article, Edwin. The President, the Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States, including you. If Johnson's impeached for firing you, you'll be on trial as well. If not in an impeachment proceeding, at least in the court of public opinion. Everything you've done will be out in the open for all the world to see, and for future generations to weigh in the balance. Be careful you don't go down with the ship.
(1865).
Mr. President, this Reconstruction Bill is more than a shot across the bow. It's a direct attack on your presidency. That's to say nothing of the Tenure of Office Act.
Who in the hell is Congress to tell me, the President of the United States, who I can and cannot fire?
It's no coincidence these two bills were passed on the same day, Mr. President.
What's that supposed to mean, Wells?
Actually, sir, I think Mr. Stanton should be the one to answer that question.
Well, Stanton?
Mr. President, I am outraged.
You are?
I am incensed, sir. I have sided with the radicals on many issues over the years, but this bill, this so-called Tenure of Office Act is an atrocity, sir.
Hear, hear.
Wield your executive pen, Mr. President. Veto this disgrace to our democracy.
The Republicans still have a majority in the House and Senate, sir.
Which makes my veto power as worthless as a pizzle on a heifer.
Yes, it's true. You are entirely powerless to stop the will of the Congress, but you can send a clear message to the people. These so-called congressmen might wish to trample on the sacred words forged by our founding fathers, but by God, Andrew Johnson will not.
Mystified though I am, I agree with Mr. Stanton. Issue the veto, Mr. President. Do it today.
With your permission, sir, I'd be more than happy to draft the veto myself, sir.
Get to it then.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Stanton's behind the Reconstruction Bill, Mr. President. The Tenure of Office Act, too. Surely you realize that.
My mama didn't raise no fool, Wells.
He's challenging you, sir. Daring you to fire him.
Stanton's as crazy as a bull bat. Always has been.
If you take the bait, sir.
I know. Congress will yank the hook clear through my gills.
Mr. President, the Republicans are divided. The moderates and the radicals are at war over the soul of their party. You firing Stanton will only unite them against you. If you do this, sir, Congress will move to impeach.
I can't fire him, not now. You're right, Wells.
Unfortunately, Mr. President, on this subject I'd rather be wrong.
You ever go noodling when you were a child?
Noodling?
When I was growing up, we were so dirt poor we couldn't even afford a fishing pole. Had to roll up our pant legs, wade out into the creek, and snag those sons of bitches with our bare hands. See, when you're noodling, you can't just reach into the water and grab the fish. It won't work.
Because catfish is slippery. I understand the metaphor. You've been spending too much time around Edward Stanton.
Let me finish. When a catfish senses danger, it'll try to hide by burying itself in the mud. We don't need to make the first move. All we have to do is wait for Stanton to dig a hole he can't get himself out of. When he's good and stuck, I'll snatch him up.
Galveston, Texas, April 26, 1867, to the Honorable J.W. Throckmorton, Governor of Texas. Sir, enclosed find statement signed by 60 loyal citizens of Parker and Jack counties in your state. Petitioners affirm the courts of justice there are being used to protect civil rights violators, whose hands are red with the blood of freedmen. Indeed, the judge presiding over these counties is said to be a former rebel general. If these charges are false, disprove them. If they are true, the remedy must be swift. Your Excellency, protect the citizenry, in person and property, from all attack. Please let me know your action at the earliest moment. I have the honor to be, sir, your obedient servant, General Sheridan, Military Governor of the Texas-Louisiana District. Well, tell me, Mr. Langston, what action did the Honorable Governor Throckmorton of Texas take?
He told General Sheridan to go to hell.
Oh, for God's sake.
The state governments are shielding the rebels from prosecution, Mr. Secretary. We have to do something.
General Sheridan believes the solution is more troops.
With respect to General Sheridan, troops are not enough. These are not random acts of violence by embittered Southerners. These are coordinated attacks.
They lost on the battlefield, so they've moved the war to a new front.
This society of knights, as they call themselves, has spread to nearly every state in the South. Their numbers are growing by the day.
Yet their leadership remains elusive.
They're not elusive, Mr. Stanton. They're hiding in plain sight. These men are not backwoods Confederates with a chip on their shoulder. They're former Confederate officers, plantation owners, and higher-ups in the Confederate government. To find their leadership in Texas, you need look no further than the governor's mansion.
Throckmorton.
If he's not a member himself, he's certainly working to achieve the same ends. Throckmorton refuses to acknowledge General Sheridan's authority. He refuses to cooperate with the Bureau, and he refuses to uphold the law.
What was the name of that Republican fellow in Texas, the one we ran against Throckmorton in the governor's race?
Mr. Pease?
Is he a good man?
I suppose.
What I mean is, do you find him a suitable replacement for governor?
Next to the Honorable J.W. Throckmorton of Texas, the devil himself is a suitable replacement. But Mr. Pease lost, Stanton. Throckmorton beat him handedly, 4-1.
Well, that won't do. Marshal McPhail! Unfortunately, that margin is too wide to challenge the results of the election. We'll have to do this another way.
You called, sir?
Bring me Congressman Bingham now.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Langston, send word to General Sheridan. Tell him to hold strong in Texas. The cavalry is coming.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to send Mr. Throckmorton into early retirement.
You want to oust the governor of Texas?
Yes. Well, no, not only the governor of Texas. There are others. As a matter of fact, I prepared a list of people I'd like removed for your review.
This is a long list.
Texas is a large state.
This is only Texas?
Yes, I thought we'd start there and work our way east.
Mr. Stanton, the War Department does not have constitutional authority to intervene.
Well, not yet. That's why you're here. I want you to pass a law giving me the power to remove Southern officials who refuse to fall in line.
Even if that could happen, and believe me, that's a far cry from certainty.
We have a majority in both houses. What's the issue?
The issue, Mr. Stanton, is that the law you're proposing is unconstitutional.
Well, a touch, yes.
Not a touch. Many touches.
You're right, yes. Eventually the law will be challenged and it'll make its way to the Supreme Court.
Precisely.
Once there, those shriveled old Jacksonian Democrats will overturn it. But that process won't happen overnight. It'll take time. Enough time, I'll wager, to remove from power any Southern governor who doesn't toe the line.
Lord God in heaven, am I really entertaining this?
Bingham, they are murdering freedmen with impunity. And these elected officials are protecting the murderers.
I'll need to have a conversation with Senator Sumner first.
Is that a yes? I require a yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Johnson is absolutely going to fire you now.
Well, here's to hoping. Happy voting, Mr. Bingham.
July 19th, 1867. Congress has just passed another supplementary bill to the Reconstruction Act, giving its military governors the power to remove and replace anyone holding a state or municipal office.
General Thomas.
Mr. President.
How the hell are you, Lorenzo? Oh, do you mind if I call you Lorenzo?
I serve at the pleasure of the President.
No need to stand on ceremony. I want us to talk as men, Lorenzo. Put your feet up. Have a drink with me.
I never say no to a drink.
My cabinet doesn't much like to drink. Last summer, when I dismissed most of Lincoln's bunch, I should have made drinking a necessary prerequisite for the job. You're aware I cleaned house in the cabinet?
Yes, sir. Only I don't know the precise reason.
Disrespect.
Justifiable cause in my book, sir.
Of course, that was back before Congress passed this law of theirs, this Tenure of Office Act. I'd say that was pretty disrespectful. And now they're telling me the War Department can remove an elected official from office with a snap of a finger. I'd say that's pretty damn disrespectful, too.
Not to mention unconstitutional.
You know who else is a teetotaler, Lorenzo? My war secretary. Matter of fact, Edwin Stanton's the soberest one of the bunch.
And the most disrespectful. In my experience, at least.
I've decided I'm going to send Stanton on a permanent vacation. Assuming you're interested in the job, of course.
Why me?
I'm tired of drinking alone.
You already offered the post to General Grant. He flatly refused.
General Grant, as it turns out, is no friend to my administration.
That doesn't answer my question.
You served your country with honor and distinction for years. And how did Stanton thank you? Shipped you off to nowhere, Mississippi during the war. Gave you the undignified task of recruiting Negroes to the fight. I'd say that's pretty damn disrespectful. And now he's written you off as a useless drunk, devoid of all honor. His words.
I may have turned to the bottle in recent years. I may have ruined my name and sullied my reputation, but I remain a man of honor. If dueling remained the law of the land, I would meet that snake Edwin Stanton on the bank of the river at dawn, and I assure you, I would not aim for the sky.
You want to know why you, Lorenzo? That's why. Take back your honor, sir. It's waiting for you in Stanton's office.
At your pleasure, Mr. President.
Well, I'll drink to that. Only before the job's yours, I do have one last piece of official business.
What's that, sir?
I gotta catch me a catfish.
July 30th, to the Honorable Governor Throckmorton of Texas. Dear Sir, you are hereby relieved of your duty as Governor of the State of Texas, effective immediately.
From the office of the President, Secretary Stanton, it has come to my attention that Governor Throckmorton has been forcibly removed from the state capitol, Further, I have learned that Mr. Pease has taken possession of the governor's mansion. Please instruct General Sheridan to have his men remove Mr. Pease immediately so that Governor Throckmorton may resume his duties.
President Johnson, be advised. I have instructed General Sheridan to dispatch our men to the governor's mansion with instructions to protect Governor Pease. Your order is in direct violation of the Third Reconstruction Act. You cannot use the military to subvert the will of the people. Request denied.
Mr. Stanton, public considerations of a high character constrain me to say that your resignation will be accepted at once.
Mr. Johnson, I have received your note. My reply is as follows. Public considerations of a high character also constrain me to not resign my office. Your humble servant, Edward M. Stanton.
Mr. Stanton, Mr. Bingham.
How do you do, General?
Lorenzo Thomas. I'm surprised to see you upright. I was just telling Mr. Bingham I heard you died of drink in the woods of Mississippi.
You heard wrong. You'll notice, sir, this is something I never thought I'd have the opportunity to say to you. You're fired.
How unfortunate. Mr. Bingham, it seems Mr. Johnson no longer requires my services.
Such a pity.
I suppose congratulations are in order, Mr. Thomas? Assuming you're my replacement, of course.
You are to vacate your office immediately. I will take possession of the War Department this afternoon.
Well, I'll need some time to gather my personal belongings.
Be quick. Good day, sir.
Secretary Thomas, might I have a copy of the President's termination letter?
I don't have a copy.
Oh dear. Well, that won't do. I require a copy for my records. I'd be happy to make one myself and return the original.
I suppose that's a reasonable request. Here, take it.
Where will I find you, Mr. Secretary?
Beg your pardon?
I need to know where to send my men to return the original.
I'm staying at the National Hotel.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your courtesy.
A kindness I never received from you.
I'll call a meeting with the Republican leadership. We'll get to work on the articles of impeachment straight away.
See that you do.
Don't worry, Stanton. Be back in your office in no time.
I'm not leaving my office, Mr. Bingham.
You're not?
No. I'm going to barricade myself inside.
What?
Marshal McPhail!
Please tell me you're not serious.
Yes, Mr. Secretary.
Post guards outside the War Department. No one comes in or out without my permission.
Yes, sir.
Take an armed detail to the National Hotel and call on General Thomas.
Why are you sending an armed detail?
Because he's under arrest.
Christ, Stanton, tell me that's not loaded.
Drag that fool Lorenzo Thomas to the Capitol Prison and keep him there until I say otherwise.
Right away, sir.
Is this absolutely necessary?
The game is afoot, Mr. Bingham. Rally the Republicans. There's not a moment to waste.
I was born and raised in the South, gentlemen like you, in Raleigh, North Carolina. Did you ever hear the one about Raleigh? A boy and his mama are walking through a graveyard in Tennessee when a tombstone catches the boy's eye. Headstone reads, "Here lies a man from Raleigh and a great man too." Confused, the boy turns to his mama and says, "Mama, I don't understand." And his mama says, "Well, honey, what don't you understand?" And the boy says, "Why are there two bodies buried in this grave?"
Mr. President.
Well, if it isn't Neptune himself come to grace us mere mortals with his presence.
May I have a moment, Mr. President?
I'm entertaining dinner guests, Mr. Wells. Surely it can wait.
It's quite urgent, sir.
Excuse me, gentlemen. When I come back, I'll tell you why Robert E. Lee doesn't like jokes. He, General Lee, doesn't find them very funny. All right, what can I do for you, Wells?
General Thomas has been placed under arrest.
I heard.
Judge Carter set his bail at $5,000.
I heard that, too.
Mr. President, Do I still have your confidence, sir?
Ah, Wells.
Am I still your most trusted advisor?
Of course you are.
Then why do you refuse to heed my counsel? I told you not to fire him.
Yes, I seem to recall that.
Just last week, I spoke with the Republican leadership. I assured those congressmen that Edwin Stanton's position was not in jeopardy.
What's done is done, Wells.
You should have come to me first. You should have consulted me.
Why? I already knew what you were going to say. Well, guess what, Wells? I fired him. The sky hasn't fallen, and the sun will still come up tomorrow morning.
Mr. President, my friends tell me the Senate has just voted in secret. They passed a resolution reaffirming their position that you don't have the authority to remove the War Secretary. They've given their tacit approval, which means the House will move to impeach.
Thinking that might not be such a bad thing after all.
Sir?
I've spoken to the Attorney General, and he agrees. Lincoln appointed Stanton, not me, which means Mars is not protected by the statutes of the bill.
So you did consult the Attorney General?
It ain't personal, it's politics. And just now, I'm starting to get the hang of this.
What about General Thomas?
What about him? His bail's already been posted.
Please tell me you didn't use government funds.
Why do you think I'm here telling jokes to a table full of rich Southerners? They scratched my back to the tune of $5,000 for General Thomas. Now I gotta scratch theirs.
You're right, Mr. President. You are getting the hang of this.
Now, if you'll excuse me, Wells, there's a table full of wealthy asses out there needs kissing.
Mr. President, wait. Where is General Thomas now?
Taking back what's rightfully his.
Mr. Stanton.
Mr. Thomas.
That's Secretary Thomas to you?
I do hope you were not frightened by my armed guards standing watch outside. Caution precludes hospitality. Forgive me, Mr. Thomas.
Secretary Thomas.
And what are you secretary of? The Capitol Prison? That's impressive after only a single night's stay.
I will not be insulted by you.
Oh, that's hardly your decision. Would you like a drink?
I am here for business.
I was under the impression you were the sort of man who never said no to a drink.
As the Secretary of War ad interim, I am ordered by the President of the United States to take charge of this
As
office.
the lawful Secretary of War, I order you to remove yourself from this office at once.
As the Secretary of War ad interim, I shall not obey your orders.
Will you leave this office, sir?
I will not.
You may stand there if you like, but you will act as Secretary of War at your own peril.
Relinquish this office, Mr. Stanton, or I will take it by force.
2 war secretaries. What a predicament. A brief story, if you will.
I will not.
When I first took over the War Department back in '62, I found you insufferable.
And are you?
I remember telling Major Eckert that I wanted to pick you up with a pair of tongs and drop you from the nearest window. But, in spite of my personal distaste for you, I kept you on. Because you were a good officer and I saw value in you.
Is that why you shipped me off to the Mississippi Valley?
Yes. Recruiting black soldiers was my top priority. I needed a competent man on the ground in Mississippi.
Do you mock me, sir?
You mocked yourself. You turned drunk out there in the woods, ignored your responsibility, and drank yourself into a stupor.
I believe I've had enough of this story.
When good men turn drunk, they get sloppy and do foolish things, like stealing from the government's war chest and doing a lackluster job of covering their tracks. You see, Mr. Thomas, one of the chief marks of an effective war secretary is the ability to keep meticulous records. And I've kept a meticulous file on you.
Threaten me all you like, Stanton. I have the president behind me.
We won't be president for long. Here are your options, Mr. Thomas. You can take my office, at which point I'll print your story in every newspaper on this continent. Show the people of this country who you really are, a common thief. Or you can drink your drink. I'll even break my rule and have one with you. And when we're done toasting, I'll make a different sort of announcement to the press. How does second in command at the War Department sit with you?
You're not leaving me much of a choice at all, are you?
No, I'm not.
In that case, I never say no to a drink.
To General Thomas.
To his Secretary of War.
Little chicken shit!
He's a weak man, Mr. President, with a weak constitution. It would have been wise to choose a more suitable replacement.
What about you? Hell, you're as qualified as any man in Washington.
I must respectfully decline as well, Mr. President.
I never took you for a yellow-belly.
I'm not afraid of Edward Stanton, Mr. President. But I'd rather sleep in a warm bed tonight, not on the floor of the Capitol prison.
I see.
Mr. President, I do have a suggestion.
The hell with your suggestion. If Stanton can swear an affidavit and arrest a war secretary, then by God, I can too. I want you to raise a judge. Let's give Stanton a taste of his own medicine.
Is that wise, sir?
I just gave you an order.
I'm trying to help you, sir. If only you would listen.
You're as worthless as teats on a bull. You want to help? Here's a nickel. Go to the barber down the street and pay him to shave that mangy beard off your face.
What's wrong with my beard?
You're fired!
You would violate the Tenure of Office Act twice?
I'll fire the entire goddamn government if I so choose. I am the president!
Then act presidential, sir. Consider for a moment the actions of Edwin Stanton. He arrests one of his own generals, he barricades himself inside the War Department, he posts armed soldiers out front with orders to arrest anyone who tries to enter without permission. He is making a tyrant of himself, Mr. President. Do not make one of yourself, too.
You're thinking something. I can tell by the look on your face.
Congress has given Stanton a lot of rope with his Tenure of Office Act, Mr. President. I suggest you sit back, relax, and wait for Stanton to hang himself with it.
Come in.
Mr. Stanton.
Mr. Bingham, how was the meeting?
Productive. The Republican leaders unanimously agree Johnson's broken the law. He must be impeached.
The moderate Republicans are on board too?
To a point.
What's that supposed to mean?
Everyone agrees he should be impeached. The question is, what for? Congressman Stevens and a few of the radicals pushed for various high crimes, but the moderates pushed back. Conspiracy to violate the Tenure of Office Act is as far as they're willing to go.
We can't prosecute him on a procedural crime alone, Mr. Bingham.
Procedural crime may be the only option we have.
The man is a
You all right?
Yes.
Sit down.
No.
Sit. It's getting worse, isn't it?
It's not getting better.
What do the doctors say?
Mr. Bingham, I am not interested in discussing my condition. Negro men and women are being murdered in the streets, and Johnson refuses to enforce the law. He undermines Congress at every turn. He disobeys the will of the people, and he gives aid and comfort to the enemy. The punishment should fit the crime.
What crime would that be?
Treason.
An article for treason will never make it to the House floor.
And why not?
There's no evidence.
The evidence is in his every word and action.
This is not a military tribunal, Stanton.
And it's not a court of law either. This is a political process. If we limp into an impeachment fight with only the Tenure of Office Act, we might as well raise the white flag and congratulate Johnson on a second term.
If you drum up a treason charge with no evidence to support it, you'll embolden Johnson, empower the Democrats, and give the press ammunition to attack Congress. I listened to you in the tribunal and we lost. It nearly cost me my reputation. I'll not make the same mistake again.
Mr. Bingham.
I'm giving you my answer. If you want me to present an article for treason to the House of Representatives, bring me evidence.
Mr. Secretary,
Mr. Conover.
I'm sorry to drop in on you without warning.
It was quite fine. What can I do for you?
I have some information I feel might be of use to you.
Shut the door. I'm listening.
You're aware the government is pursuing perjury charges against me.
Yes.
Perjury I'm alleged to have committed in your tribunal.
I heard.
Only problem being, I didn't commit perjury.
I'm sorry, Mr. Conover. I truly am. I wish there was something I could do to help. My hands are tied.
Then untie them.
You're being tried in a public court, sir. As Secretary of War, I have no authority to interfere.
I don't want to make a deal with you, sir. I want you to broker me an indenture with the Republicans.
Congress has no more authority over the courts than I do.
You don't understand.
Then enlighten me, Mr. Conover.
I want immunity in exchange for congressional testimony against Andrew Johnson.
Congressional testimony?
If the Republicans guarantee me I'll never spend a day in prison, I'll tell them everything I know.
And what would that be exactly?
Andrew Johnson colluded with Jefferson Davis. He conspired with John Wilkes Booth to assassinate President Lincoln.
1865 is an Airship production, starring Jeremy Schwartz as Edwin Stanton, also featuring Robert McCullum, Sean Hannigan, J. Michael Tatum, R. Bruce Elliott, William Jackson Harper, Aaron Roberts, Chris Hury, and Brandon Potter. Created by Stephen Walters and Eric Archilla. Written and directed by Stephen Walters. Executive producer Lindsey Graham. Co-executive producers Eric Archilla, Robert McCullum, and Stephen Walters. Music and sound design by Lindsey Graham. To find out more about 1865, go to 1865podcast.com or find us on Facebook and Twitter at 1865podcast. And if you're a fan of the show, please consider supporting us. Become a patron at patreon.com/1865podcast. New episodes air weekly, and look for special Inside the Episode interviews with the writers and producers of the series to find out more about the real history behind 1865.